All right, 8th grade. So, in class, we talked about how to use protractors. If you were absent that day, you're more than welcome. Here's what you missed. If you're just like, oh my goodness, I couldn't see, I need more of a visual, or I need another go at this, again, video is here for you. So, the problem we were asked was to figure out what the measure of Shanika's angle was. And several of you had different ways of measuring it, which was great. One way we could talk about it is those benchmark angles, right? We know what a 90-degree angle looks like, so here's our 90-degree angle, right? We know what a 180-degree angle looks like, and that it's a straight line. So we know that her angle, or their angle, is greater than 90, but less than 180. And so knowing that, that's the definition of an obtuse angle. So we know her angle is obtuse. We know it's between the measures of 90 and 180. Now we can use a protractor to measure. And so these three talk us through how to use a protractor. So first you line up either zero mark on the protractor exactly with one ray of the angle. Now if you're using 180, that does, like, you have 2 0 marks. If you're using the 360, you have 1 0 mark, and we'll talk about how to do it on both of them. So like if I come back up to hers, I am wanting to, here's my 0 line. I'm wanting to line that up with 0. Now I also want to line up my center point. So this, I think this is where some of us are getting lost. This little circle right here, a lot of you like to put your pencil on it and then spin the protractors around like helicopters, of which, remember, protractors are tools, not toys. But it's going to go where the vertex is. And so the vertex is where the two rays meet in the middle. And so I'm going to line up in that dot and then line up my 0. Notice that the black line on the protractor disappears into the line here. Okay, from there, we are going to measure where it came through. You could extend, right? For this protractor, we don't have enough space. So we can extend our line out so that I'm not doing a lot of guesswork, right? Line it back up, and we are somewhere here between 120 and 130. And I know that I'm between 120 and 130 because it's an obtuse angle. So I know I want to choose the bigger angles, not the smaller angles. And so, yeah, we would look at this other ray to figure it out. If you're like, okay, but Mrs. Cartwright, I keep getting stuck with the circle one, we're going to find that 0. We're going to find where 10, 20, 30 is, right? I'm going to put those in line with the inside of my angle. Again, line up center on the vertex. I also have a 0 line here. Notice it disappears into my arrow that is pointing at the 0. And if we look here, we are approximately somewhere between 120 and 130 degrees. Okay? So, knowing that, this first connect, it says estimate an angle measure of her angle. And so, I mean, it's an estimate. In class, we came up with that it's about 125 degrees. Because we were what looked like approximately halfway between 120 and 130. Now, it asks, why must we line up the protractor's center point with the vertex? And the reason for that is, if I don't, let's come back over here. If I don't line up the center point, and we won't do it on both, we'll just do it with one. So here it is lined up, right? If I go to the edge here instead of the center point, what happens to my angle, right? It's now coming at a weird angle, and it's not, right? If I measure here, like, it throws off. If we don't put it on the vertex, it throws off where my angle measure is. And so that's why that is important. Like, for accuracy reasons, we are more accurate when we have it on the center point. So, why must you line up the protractor center point with the vertex of the angle to be accurate? All right, suppose you line one ray up with the mark showing 10 or 170 instead of the mark showing 0 or 180. So in class we talked about that. That's pretty much taking and lining it up in the middle here instead of the center of your protractor, right? So if we line up here, notice that that puts us at approximately where that 170, 10 degrees or 170 is. And if you notice, that throws our line off by approximately the same amount that this is off here. Okay, so what happens when we line up with the 10 or the 170 instead? How would it change? It changes it by 10 degrees. Now this one didn't change by exactly 10 degrees, but that's because it's actually approximately 15 degrees more than the 0. But the reason they put that question in is because a very common mistake is that we line it up in the top instead of lining it up with the 0 mark. And so that's something we got to be careful of. So if we line up either mark showing what does the other ray point to, and that's that 125 degree mark. If you're wanting to double check, again, we're putting this in here, lining it up with the 0, and we are at about 125 degrees with my extended line there. Which number of degrees is the measure of the angle? And explain, it says which mark does the other ray point to. So it could be at 125, or it could be at 55 or 55 degrees, but I know it's at 125 degrees because it's an obtuse angle. And that's how we know we want the 125 over the 55. Because we know the difference between acute and obtuse. So then moving into our apply, what is the measure in degrees of the angle shown? So here, notice where the line is. We are going all the way around to here, which shows us that that is between 230 and 240, which is about 235 degrees. Now, I'm going to use the circle one so you can see me moving things around. We're trying to find this angle measure, which would be about it is this cross section right there. Okay, from point to point and down to the center. So, vertex, right here. If it helps, put a point there. So you can line it up in the center of your protractor. From there, I'm going to line up my 0. If I don't line it up with my 0, I'm going to be a couple degrees off, right? Well, let's see if I can shift this so that we can better see without the light. There we go, glaring on the protractor. All right, so here's my 0. If I follow the 10, 20, 30, then I know that this is a 30-degree angle. So again, with these circle ones, you want to line up with the 0. You want your 10 inside. I do not want to take this one and go this way because my 10 is on the outside and that's not the way I'm measuring my angles. So, coming over here, line up my vertex, line up my 0, and then here's my 10, 20, 30. I'm going to go all the way around to here, which is at 100, that's 150 degrees, so that's what I'm going to put here, 150 degrees. Okay, I hope, a couple of things, right? That circle, right there, in this one, right here in that one, has to line up with the vertex. If it doesn't line up with the vertex, you're going to be off. And then this line right here matches with this 0 degrees, well, and that 0 degrees. And then once you find your 0 here, so our 0, this line here is your 0 degree mark. So you want to line it up. Once you line up your vertex, line that line up with your ray so that you can find an accurate measure. Because if you don't line it up with the ray, then you're going to be thrown off by that same amount of degrees. Okay? If you have questions, please come see me. I hope that these videos help if you were struggling or if you missed out on a day and didn't get to be there. And I will see you in class. Have a nice day.